Hi there. Welcome to Sparrow Day. My name is Matt Moran, and we're glad you're here. I gotta tell you, if someone would have told me 2 years ago that I would be delivering an intro like this to a church service, I honestly would have said, you are crazy. And the reason being was because I, even having grown up in the church, had spent the last 17 years just not going, not watching anything online, wanted nothing to do with church. And the reason was because as much importance as I placed on my faith, and as much as I loved connecting with my faith and with other people in that way, I just could not find a church that felt safe to me. I couldn't find a church that welcomed all of me to the table in a way that didn't make me feel like I had to measure up in some way, shape, or form, even with regard to just my belief system. So that's one of the things I love probably the most about this church, is that all of me is welcomed to the table. All of my doubts, all of my curiosities, all of my questions, and I am not ever forced to land somewhere belief-wise in order to feel accepted here. So my hope for you is that you would come into this service feeling that safety, that welcoming from us, and that you would enjoy every single minute. Welcome to Sparrow Day.
There's a time for everything under the sun. At least that's what I had learned when I was young. But lately, oh, the time has shown us you can't trust everything you're told. This is what it's like at 31. I'm not really sure what I believe. Is it history or is it poetry? But lately all I'm certain of is there's a God and He is love, and the time for everything under the sun. But when is it time for a liberation? When is it time for new revelations? 'Cause this doesn't feel a whole lot like the Jesus we're preaching. No, this doesn't look a whole lot like the loving we're living. No, this doesn't sound a whole lot like salvation. I don't like the labels anymore. Feels like propaganda getting us through their doors. 'Cause what we say and what we mean, they don't line up and they make us mean. What the hell are we even fighting for? I'm tired of the politics and the wars, and using our theologies like swords. We've got 40,000 different names, and every name is shifting blame. I mean, is this really what the bride is for? Oh, and who said we decide who's in or out? As if you're gay, you know you'd better straighten out. Or if your skin makes us feel unsafe, just quiet down, take up less space. When's the time we learn to shut our mouth? Oh, and when is it time for a liberation? When is it time for new revelation? doesn't feel a whole lot like the Jesus we're preaching. No, this doesn't look a whole lot like the love we're living. No, this doesn't sound a whole lot like salvation. Salvation. I know the truth is worth fighting for, but something isn't lining up anymore. 'Cause a God who'd rather die than not have us right by his side is more about love than we'll ever know. Is more about love than we'll ever know. Than we'll ever know. Than we'll ever know. So from this day until my final breath, I'm gonna give away everything inside my chest. I won't withhold what's given me, even if you disagree. 'Cause there's a time for everything under the sun, and it's time for us to learn how to really love.
Well, hey everybody, and welcome to Sparrow Day, and let me also say happy Easter. I'm so glad that you are tuning in today, and wherever you are in the United States, wherever you are in the UK, in Canada, Australia, parts of Europe who at times tune in, I just want to welcome you to this wonderful, unique, and new church that is rethinking and reimagining Christianity. Our Christian tradition is still important and meaningful to us, especially on Easter weekend, as billions of people acknowledge Easter. But we also want to reimagine our tradition in new ways for the 21st century. So wherever you are, whoever you are, and wherever your existential location is at on this Easter, welcome. Welcome to Sparrow Day. Well, happy Easter, everybody. You know, for me, I still find the ultimate narrative of the Christian faith compelling. I do. I still find it a really beautiful thing, a very hopeful thing. Now, I know it's gotten toxically packaged along the way. It's gotten toxically packaged in fundamentalism and rigid doctrinalism, in weird moralism, in biblical literalism, conversionism. Even historically, it's gotten toxically packaged in imperialism and colonialism. But that's a lot of isms, isn't it? But I'm not trying to say any of that. I mean its ultimate narrative, as I perceive it, and in Easter, I still find it compelling, and it's this. It's that the pattern of life transformation, that death always transforms into life, that our scars and our wounds are always used to heal us, and that our weaknesses can become our strengths, and they can be the things that actually make us resilient. So this Easter 2022, I still find that compelling. And I find that compelling narrative enveloped in Easter, in the meaning of Easter. But you know, this compelling pattern, it's not something we automatically are drawn to. In fact, we try to avoid it. It's so human. You know, we want the transformation, we want the resilience, we want the centering, but we somehow want to escape the pattern that actually builds us in it. So we avoid the dying part, and, you know, we run from our wounds that can actually heal us. We avoid our weaknesses, and these are the very things that actually make us strong. This has been my pattern anyway, to be so human and to avoid that. It's usually life. Life has to play out in such a way that it awakens us to this pattern. Only when it beckons us do we really get there. And it's really something in reality that wakes us up to this very spiritual pattern. It's not something supernatural that makes it spiritual. It's something in life that wakes us up to it, reality. And I still find this in the Easter. This is why Easter still gives me hope. And this is why my Christian spirituality is still meaningful to us, because it's Christ in our tradition. It's actually Christ who experienced the pattern, who actually moderned the past pattern himself. In our tradition, Christ gave his full consent to this death to life pattern. And when he did, at the end of the result, he gets life and strength and resilience. I love how the writer of Hebrews puts it. Looking to Jesus, who is the author and finisher of our faith, that whenever we follow this pattern of Easter, you know, each time we trust in God and we ourselves consent to the experience of being vulnerable to our weaknesses or facing the reality of our wounds, in a sense, we're dying, we end up living. And something within us rises, something within us resurrects. There is something always transformational, or I should say resurrectional, when we trust this dying process and we let go. And we can only really know life when we know death, the dying of something first. This is the Easter story, death giving way to resurrection. It's really the evolutionary process of all things, and it's what leads to life and wholeness. And as I've said, I still find this pattern hopeful, and maybe you do too, because some of you are experiencing the death of something right now. It might be the death of a dream or the death of a relationship. It might be the death of some sort of phase. Something is ending in your life. Or maybe it's even the death of some passion. You might even be experiencing the death of something more spiritual or existential, like the death of a belief that you've held on to so long, or the death of some identity you gained from some particular Christian subculture that you are letting go of. Maybe it's even the death of the very meaning of life. And these kind of deaths can always hit us in different ways. But ironically, that is the pattern from the first Easter all the way to now, that through death we gain life. You know, Jesus spoke of these mysterious paradoxes that encapsulate Christianity, that the last shall be first. To get, you have to give. Through our weaknesses, we're made strong. And then this one here, this Easter, that you gain your life only when you lose it. So resurrection is the observable patterns of everything. Easter and the resurrection, it's not just some event locked in the past that you have to try to figure out, or you feel you need to prove it as a fact to your faith now in order for it to be real now. To paraphrase the wisdom of Albert Einstein here, he said, it's not that one thing is a miracle, but that the whole thing is a miracle. Everything is the miracle. So for the Christian, the concept of resurrection is the reality of everything now, everywhere. And we see it all over. We see it in nature in springtime. We see it in relationships through forgiveness. We see it in human formation as we go through these rites of passages. We see it in the healing of our heart, how our brokenness can actually heal us. And when certain things die, this allows a whole new thing to resurrect. And I've come to consider my own life and faith that it's not my job to have to figure out how and when of the resurrection. It's not my burden to even have to prove it to myself by taking some point in history past and have to turn it into facts then so I can have faith now. No, what true faith is it's trusting now. I love what Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung said about this in his doorway. He had, in Latin, it was vocatus. I don't have all the Latin memorized, but here's what it means. It means invoked or not invoked, God is still present. Or updated way, called or not called, God is still here. So I don't feel the burden to have to prove anything. It's my present inner trust, trusting the pattern of resurrection now, that through death, through wounds, I'm healed, and through the death of something, new life comes. The awakening of God in spiritual things, it seems to always be more stealth, more quiet, and existentially within us. Spiritual things seem to move best underground. When they get above ground, we humans, we seem to need to fight about it or divide over it, label this kind is correct and that kind is incorrect. And our tradition has always had words to describe this internal, underground, quiet presence. We call it grace. We call it the indwelling of the Spirit. And the Apostle Peter, he puts it more in the union and evolution of God. He puts it in the whole thing of love, where he says, God is love, and all who live in love live in God, and God lives in them. So this Easter, as our world is so divided politically and racially and socially and economically and even religiously, listen, God is not in competition with anybody. God does not have to prove anything, especially if proof means rubber stamping a certain subculture's version of God. I love how Paul puts it in Romans, where he said, God's Spirit is always at work for the good of everyone who loves God. And when Peter was giving his great sermon in the book of Acts, about Easter, he says this, Peter began to speak, I really understand now that God does not consider some people to be better than others. He accepts anyone who is amazed by God and does what is good. You surely know what happened everywhere in Judea. God gave the Holy Spirit and the power to Jesus from Nazareth. He traveled around doing good and healing everyone oppressed by the evil one because God was with him. And we are his witnesses of everything he did. They killed him by hanging him on a tree. But God raised him up on the third day and allowed him to be seen. Not by everyone, but by us. We are the witnesses whom God chose beforehand, who ate and drank with him after God raised him from the dead. Jesus told us to tell the people that everyone who trusts in Jesus are forgiven. All the prophets agree that this is true. So I love this. And what Peter is expressing is they were actual eyewitnesses. But even so far removed from that time, we can become, in a sense, witnesses too, through awareness, through our own spiritual experience. When we have spiritual experiences, in a sense, we experience the witnessing. You know, Christ's followers, they write about real experiences with his wisdom, with his kindness, you know, witnessing miracles, the things that captivated their devotion. So before his death, right? They saw those things before. But once in the Christian story, once he resurrects, they now experience him in a completely new way. They walk with him, they talk with him. At one point, he cooks breakfast for them, and now he lives in them more indelibly. And the same thing, that when we just attach ourselves to Christ through trust, it's not like we have to witness something of the past and turn it into a fact now in order for our faith to live. No. I'm not burdened with that. But when I trust now and I experience God now, he lives. He lives in me.
Anxious thoughts and fearful musings stoke my anger, fuel my hate. Dare I trust such deep compassion and open up to a love so great? Rise in me, oh risen one, overcome my fear and blindness. Lift me with your loving kindness, and I will shine like the sun. Rise in me, O risen one. There's a great line in the Richard Rohr book, The Universal Christ. It says, resurrection is another word for change, particularly positive change, which we tend to see only in the long run. In the short run, change often looks like death. And as I lay down my defenses, masks I've worn and hid behind, take this false self I have fashioned, tear it down, Lord, let it die. Rise in me, O risen one, overcome my fear and blindness. Lift me with your loving kindness, and I will shine, shine like the sun. Rise in me, O risen one. Rise in me, O risen one.
After all these years, I still love you. Through every single tear we've ever cried. 'Cause after all these years, it brought the two of us right here. No place I'd rather be. After all these years, it takes a little faith for a man to move a mountain. It takes a whole lot more to move a man set in his ways. But there's a way about you that leads me to redemption. You always keep me moving after all these years. And after all these years, I still love you. Through every single tear we've ever cried. 'Cause after all these years, it brought the two of us right here. No place I'd rather be. After all these
Well, that's our service for today. I'm India Lacerda, and I'm the elementary director here at Sparrow Day. And if this service was meaningful to you, or if you're interested in getting a little bit more informed about what it is that we're doing as a community, you can go online on our website and sign up for our newsletter, or you can easily follow any of our social media channels to be able to kind of just track the things that we're doing and how our community is growing. To those of you who have contributed to that growth through finances, we want to say a huge thank you, because that helps us in the day-to-day operations of keeping this community expanding. And to those of you who maybe haven't had a chance to get to give yet, you can easily go on our website. There's a tab on the right-hand side which says Give Here, and it's safe and secure for you to do so. So thank you so much. We hope to get to see you next week.